everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a review of Ahsoka Season 1, the 5th episode, which was titled Shadow Warrior. Now there will be spoilers throughout this review, so just beware when going into this overall video. And quickly, just to recap off the events of the previous episode, where we saw Ahsoka and Sabine Wren in multiple lightsaber duels against the Inquisitor, Shin and also Baylian. We see Ahsoka losing her encounter with him and falling off a cliff. Baylian convinces Sabine Wren to hand him the map before destroying it. And we see Ahsoka awaken in what was likely the world between worlds and seeing her master Anakin Skywalker once more. So going into this overall episode, there was a lot of speculation and debate as to whether this Anakin is real or is he a ghost or some sort of vision. How would Ahsoka react to seeing him once more? And would we finally see time travel integrated and potentially upsetting the whole entire canon of the Star Wars universe? Well, overall, in terms of this episode, it really was a strange mixed bag. The first half I thought was quite good, and then the second half was a bit aimless and just downright weird in many places with some of the concepts that they were trying to bring forward. Now, going into this series, we anticipated seeing Anakin once more, and that there would be some sort of flashback scenes as he is integral to Ahsoka's story in the same way that he is also integral to Obi-Wan's story. And we also saw similar flashback scenes in that particular series. And we established here that this Anakin was very much more of a dream or a mental manifestation of Ahsoka, and I think ultimately that was the right choice. Now, some people I've seen have complained that they wanted Anakin to be much more. But if we really think about it, he couldn't be much more, as that would have contradicted the whole continuity of Star Wars. We can have Force ghosts connecting with current people, that's fine. But we can't have dead people coming back in actual physical form, and I think something like this would have indeed ruined the entire mythology of Star Wars. And the episode had some good moments, seeing a younger Anakin and Ahsoka battling it out in the war zones, echoing of course all of the episodes of the Clone Wars series. Now, whether Hayden Christensen was de-aged in certain sequences or not, I think overall he looks convincing in these scenes. Now, some will point out that the battleground environment was too obvious backstage and green screen, but that's really been a problem of Star Wars ever since the prequels. And certainly within the Disney Star Wars series, it's very all too obvious that these people aren't standing in the actual backgrounds. Again, if you go into the behind the scenes productions, you'll see how they use the technology involving the 360 projections as we see the characters standing in the studio spaces. And at times, yes, it doesn't have that same physicality or tangibility that we would want to see in a combat sequence such as this. But I do think there was enough editing and lighting and smoke effects to have the desired effect in terms of showing us the previous battles that both Anakin and Ahsoka were involved in. Now, I will criticise the strange debating between Anakin and Ahsoka whilst they're in conflict. Now, normally when you get sequences like this, the characters are too busy fending off all of the enemy fire to involve in deep discussions. And it did take some intensity away, that Ahsoka and Anakin were far more concerned about the true methods of training and being a warrior as they were trying to block off all of the laser fire and running forward towards the enemy. I actually would have preferred if we had some scenes post-battle, perhaps in a secret room or another environment where these discussions could have been played out. But in a certain sense, I suppose they wanted to save time and efficiency by having these discussions playing out in the battlefield. Now, I actually thought the child actor who played a young Ahsoka works very well, and these scenes would have resonated very much so with all fans of the Clone Wars series. Now, for non-fans of those series, these moments probably wouldn't have carried as much weight, and that's probably a flaw more so with these prequel stories, leeching off the previous animated series. If you haven't seen any of those shows, whether it be Clone Wars or Rebels, then these flashbacks would have meant very little. And I guess we could criticise the context of what these flashbacks actually carried. I've stated previously that I'm not sure that any more flashbacks could add more weight or context, since both Anakin and Ahsoka's stories have been fully explored both in the prequels and the Clone Wars series. And I guess facing Anakin was some sort of motivator for Ahsoka to stay alive as she was underwater. She did seem to be underwater for a fair amount of time, but perhaps because she's a Jedi, that makes her water resistance skills far more greater than a normal human being. And I suppose during the fight sequences that we had between them both, where we saw this intersection of Anakin changing from himself into more Darth Vader, the final choice, I suppose, not to kill him in the fight meant that Ahsoka didn't die. I wasn't really convinced on that sentiment, but I do understand what they were trying to do, using Anakin as some sort of catalyst for Ahsoka to rise from the ashes and become even stronger. Now, whether that happens, we will wait and see throughout the later episodes. And as we see an Ahsoka being found underwater, I do ask the question as to whether the character has truly progressed any more from these flashback sequences. I don't think she really has. She pretty much goes back to normal, continuing to search for Sabine Wren. There's no real reflection or any lesson learned or any kind of new directive or new purpose set going forward for the character. Again, could we have had greater context if we had more flashback scenes? I will hold fire a little bit because we do have 3 episodes left, so maybe we will get more appearances of Anakin later on down the line. Now, one thing I really did question was his son Jason and how he was able to hear the fighting or the clashing of lightsabers between both Anakin and Ahsoka. And this is how they managed to locate her in the water later on. I just saw that particular sequence and was really asking, how was Jason able to hear them? Does that then mean that Ahsoka did actually travel to the world between worlds? Was Anakin actually a real person or not? Because if it was purely a dream sequence within Ahsoka, then surely Jason wouldn't be able to hear that. Now, we do know recently, of course, with the Disney Star Wars trilogy, that they have introduced some sort of Skype-like connection between the Jedis. We saw that in multiple scenes with both Kylo Ren and Rey being able to walk amongst their memories. But of course, Ahsoka series takes place before that, so nothing in this series in particular has established that sort of connection between Jedi so far. Jason is just able to hear them, which again doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I really do hope we get greater context into Jason in terms of his full sensibilities, because I really didn't follow the logic, and once more again it does contradict the concept that they were trying to bring in the earlier flashback scenes. And then things took an even weirder turn where we had the appearance once more of the space whales, and this is still a concept I just cannot wrap my head around. Whether they were in Rebels or not, I'm not too sure. But where did they come from? Why are we constantly seeing them? And where exactly were they going? I still don't know. Why exactly are they connecting to Ahsoka? I hope again we get greater context. Have they been sent forward by Ezra? Were they some sort of contingency plan just in case Ahsoka and Sabine Wren found themselves under attack from the emergence of Admiral Thrawn? I'm not really sure, again, why exactly is Ahsoka connecting to them. Again, we need further context later on in other episodes. But then we come to the really stupid moment when, after agreeing to fly with the whales without any knowledge of what they are and what agenda they held, again, that lowers the credibility of Ahsoka in some sense. The whales then start flying at the fleet, whose evasive manoeuvres didn't really seem that evasive when coming into contact with the whales. The whales all of a sudden go into hyperdrive, just like Star Cruisers do, and this made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Now, I do understand that Star Wars is a science fiction fantasy, so you're going to get much more of these kind of outlandish moments, and you do have to suspend an area of disbelief much more than what you would do watching, let's say, Star Trek. But we asked the question, why exactly would whales travel in the same fashion as what spaceships do? They're completely different organisms. We've seen them so far move very slowly amidst the clouds, and then all of a sudden they're able to travel at super light fast speed. It just doesn't make any sense any way you look at it. Whilst this is purely much more of an escapism type of story, you still have to apply some sort of sense, some sort of logic. Otherwise the whole story doesn't follow through. Are we eventually going to see some sort of big massive battle sequence in the series finale when we get this huge wave? That's really going to seem very stupid if we come to that sort of sequence. So again, we just need greater context, but it just left me really scratching my head, and I think it left this episode for much more on a flatter note considering the early sequences that we had before. And again, we're no further forward in terms of the story, we're just on the same path trying to find both Ezra and Admiral Thrawn. So overall, I didn't think this was a bad episode. I don't think it was quite as good as the previous one, which I felt really heightened a sense of both tension and stakes and threatened to move the story a bit forward. This was much more about trying to build some sort of context into Ahsoka, which I don't really think it did, because again, we've already explored the previous stories within both Clone Wars and Rebels. And again, if you haven't seen any of those shows, you're going to be slightly confused or not really taken in, because I don't think the show has done enough in its previous 4 episodes to really immerse us into the certainly adult version of Ahsoka so far. But there it is, we have it then with 3 episodes left to go. Hopefully at some stage we do eventually get to the main cause of all of the search, which is both locating Ezra and Admiral Thrawn. I'm still got this heavy suspicion that we're not going to see either of these personalities until the series finale, which is really going to be a major disappointment because the story has been trying to make both characters such a big deal in the first place. And given there's nothing else really in terms of the overall story surrounding this season, they better make sure that both Ezra and Admiral Thrawn are a big deal whenever they appear, that they both carry some sort of substance and weight in terms of their overall appearance, because I think those two elements have been sadly lacking in this series so far. But overall, not a bad episode. First half very good, second half a bit more weird. It was good to see Hayden Christensen once more as Anakin, and I think the flashback scenes carried some sort of weight, but certainly not enough, I think, to really enhance the character of Ahsoka and really take her journey and development forward throughout this season. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings on the 5th episode of the Ahsoka series, titled Shadow Warrior. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any other further movies or television series or entertainment and topics that you'd like to see me cover within the pop culture scene, then also let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.